Hello again, it's time for another weekly review. This week I want to talk about how Matt's been getting on, because it's a while since we've talked about him. Remember that Matt's a hand cyclist. He's training for the UK National Championships and some other hand cycling races, and he wants to get to international standards so he can race internationally and to get on the British cycling squad. So unfortunately his season's been knocked to pieces like most people, and the British Championships also been moved to later in the year. So let's see what Matt's been up to. So comparing with the training plan, the group plan, and Matt's been following the plan quite closely. He did the threshold test that we talked about last week, and then the interval session, and then the weekend endurance rides as planned, and he sneaked in an extra 40 minutes here to make up 3 hours on Sunday, so that's all pretty good. And then looking at this week, he did the interval session on Tuesday, and we'll have a look at how he got on there. And he did it indoors on Zwift by the looks of it. So we can look at his power zones to see how they compared. Although he hit the targets exactly, you can see that his power zones are bang on threshold. It was 100% of FTP. So we can have a look at his heart rate zones, and you can see here that he's getting up towards threshold. He's getting into zone 4, so the session is a threshold session for him, but it looks like he might have been able to manage it a little bit harder. After the test, Matt had increased his FTP power, so he's got a new threshold, and often it's sensible to not push too hard at that stage, because everything can changes, and if your training zones move, then your actual training volume goes up, even though the values in the performance management chart don't go up as much, because it's working with a new FTP and they're all based on that. So he then did the easy ride, 2 hours on a little bit more than planned, and also a little bit higher intensity than planned, but that's okay as long as he can handle the interval sessions as well. So let's have a look here how he got on with this interval session on Thursday. Again, indoor session, looks like he set it to ergometer mode, so the turbo trainer controls the power. No heart rate data here, so we can't really say how that went in terms of heart rate and how that was stressing his system. He's got an endurance ride tomorrow, easy ride, so that should be recovery, and then a couple of long rides over the weekend, so we'll see how he gets on with those. So in general, Matt's training is going pretty well. So we can have a look at how things are going. He's doing some long rides here. If we look at longest duration, he's actually done a 4-hour duration ride, which is quite a lot considering his race duration is only going to be 90 minutes. But that'll be building his aerobic threshold, and you can see here is a reasonable, nice profile, heart rate profile as we'd expect, and his power profile is a lot of time in zone 2 to build up that aerobic base, and some harder time in the higher training zones. And we can look at the 20-minute power is probably the most representative and for his race, because he won't, even though 60 minutes might be more representative, he doesn't do a lot of hard efforts in that zone. So we can use the 20 minutes, and you can see that that's sort of building up quite nicely over time. Look at the performance manager chart over the last 3 months. We can see that his training volume is building up, and he's been stressing his system quite a lot. The acute training load's quite high, and his training stress balance has been very low, which is a bit concerning, but it's all coming up nicely, and I've been in touch with him and he's not feeling overly tired, so things look to be going pretty well. He's also got quite a strong background, so that allows him to build up a bit faster, because he has been at a much higher training load last year, and therefore he can handle the lower training stress balance. So that's Matt, and he seems to be doing pretty well with the group plan. He's adjusting things according to his needs, even though he's only racing over short distances relative to a lot of people. He's doing the long rides, and they're going to make a big difference to his aerobic base, and he'll definitely reap the benefits of that. Even though it might seem a bit odd because he's only racing for 40 to 90 minutes, It's going to pay dividends in future if there are some races later in the year, and if there are some, and even into next year, because you're making physiological changes and your body's becoming more efficient, and that doesn't just disappear. That'll last him year on year, and he'll be building fitness year on year. So that's great, and that all looks pretty good. So what about the plan for next week? Well, it's an easier week next week, a recovery week, and we've kept it much the same as previous recovery weeks because I think that makes sense. I think it's nice to have something that's repeatable, and you know that if you haven't recovered in previous recovery weeks, you can make it a little bit easier. And if you found that the easier week in previous recovery weeks has been too easy for you, then you can add in a little bit of extra volume. But I suggest you don't add extra intensity during your recovery week. I suggest if you need to do a little bit more, then just do some easy riding. Okay, we'll just have a look at it now. So the end of last week was these 2 tempo rides, which you should have felt quite tired after. They're quite hard to ride at a little bit higher intensity for a long ride, and that'll leave you quite fatigued at the end of the week. So you'll be ready for a recovery week. So the recovery week includes these short interval sessions, just one hard session, and then a tempo ride on Saturday, and then all the rest you just fill in with easy exercise, low intensity riding, and if you want to do a bit of running, then that's fine. I'll just go over the interval session. For the heart rate training group is based on RPE because they're just short efforts. It's 2 by 4 by a minute with a minute recovery, and just do these pretty hard. You can work quite hard, and still it'll still be a recovery session because it's only 8 minutes of effort, and even with the warm up it's only 10 minutes of hard work, and you should recover from that reasonably quickly. So that's it, nothing particularly new. Matt's going well, hope you're going well, and have a great week, and speak to you next week. Bye.